What is up, everybody? Welcome to the inaugural, the first ever, the first of many episodes of Fence Industry One-on-One, where I bring on a member of the fence industry for a specific topic, and we have a conversation of revolving around that topic. And I thought, what better opportunity and what better person, what better conversation to have than with Michael Reed, the Executive Director of the American Fence Association, talking about the importance of training, the importance of investing in your team, specifically around Fence Installation School is right around the corner in Tulsa, as well as AFA University in Arlington. We'll dig into those and the discussion of training your team and investing in your team coming right up. First and foremost, Michael, thank you so much for coming on the first ever Fence Industry One-on-One.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I'm honored to be the first.
Well, this is a big subject, and who better to talk about this subject than the Executive Director of American Fence Association? The subject being investing in your team, specifically training the hard skills that we rely on as an industry, whether we're talking about, and I kind of preempted this by saying Fence Installation School is coming up in November in Tulsa, and then also gate operators is going on AFAU down in Arlington, Texas.
That's correct. 3rd through the 9th, November.
3rd through the 9th, November. Guys, for links to registration, those will be in the show notes or in the description below. Simply click there and it'll take you directly to it.
Perfect.
So, Michael, I'll tell you my story or like our experience, our direct experience. So we have a team member, a direct team member for Ozark Fence Company. He has shown leadership capabilities or qualities. He has shown interest in learning more and aptitude to learn more. He said he wants to be one of our team members moving forward. Now, we've been pairing him with a veteran team, a veteran crew, an experienced crew. But we took it a step further, knowing that Fence Installation School is coming up real time. This is early October. We know it's coming up in a month. And so we offered him the opportunity. He said, hey, I would love to invest in you by putting you in this position to learn a lot about what we currently do. So, but also some things that we don't currently do. Meaning that for Fence Installation School, I'm gonna try to get this right. I'm doing this on the fly. So wood fence discipline, chain link, vinyl, ornamental, and agricultural.
All 5. Yep. Perfect.
Nailed it. First try. Now, to that point, we do a lot of chain link. We do a lot of wood. We do some ornamental, both aluminum and steel, depending on the situation. We don't do hardly any vinyl. A handful of projects a year. We haven't done any agricultural. And I told him, hey, these are the disciplines that are going to be taught. And he said, well, do we have to do each of them? Because do we do agricultural? Do we do vinyl? I haven't, since he's been here, we haven't done either. I said, we don't, but I think we have the opportunity to. Yeah. And I would love for you to have that skill in your toolbox, in your skill box, in case we come across a project, for example, says, hey, we've got 1,000 feet of 6-foot chain link with 3 strands of barbed wire. That's in our wheelhouse. I would love to build that fence. Also, we've got about 30 or 40 feet that we're connecting to an existing agricultural fence. We'd like for you to just finish that off for us. Now, could we figure it out? It's totally different. Now, It's fence. It's fence, but there's plenty of agricultural guys that will tell you it is and it isn't, right? There's a lot of fine skills that go into this.
There's art.
Absolutely. And it's very different. I was going to say wildly different, but very different in terms of knots you need to know. And in terms of, there's just a lot to it. I would love for him to have that skill set. Same thing with vinyl. If we see an opportunity to market towards installing more vinyl, and therefore maybe installing more vinyl, I would love for him to have that skill set so that his crew can be really kind of our Swiss Army knife. Hey, we've got some chain link, we've got some ornamental. Hey, this week we've got some vinyl. Next week, I tell you what, we've got a project that has agricultural in it. I'd love to put you guys on it. It's going to give him those skills that maybe we aren't able to teach ourselves, but we can put him in an environment where he'll learn them.
Yeah. So what I love about that is that you really focused on the technical competencies and growing some of these technical competencies, which that's kind of the first level, is making sure that you're technically competent in your job.
Yeah.
But I think the other part that I find really appealing when people come to the fence installation school or the gate school is that people feel that investment that you spoke about. People want to feel like they are professionals. And I think when they go to that
Sure.
school and they see themselves surrounded with other people like them and they have some success, they get a pat on the back and they're talking to older folks that are doing the instructing, they have this feeling of, I thought it was just my company, or I thought it was just my company in my market.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you're taking somebody and you're showing them, yes, you're important,
Sure.
but look at this giant industry that you're a part of that is so exciting. And that's what I love about both the fence installation school or the fence contractor business school. I've taught the sales training
Great
school. And that gate installation school in Arlington. That's why you get the mix of the technical skills, and then you also get this experience that shows you that you're part of a fraternal band. You're part of a band of warriors, and it's awesome. It's an incredible experience.
Well, and it's going to do a couple things. One, it's going to show our commitment to him. Yep. By investing in him. One, I mean, there's a financial investment, but also there's a time investment, right? We're going to take him out of production. We're going to put him in a training. We're also going to pay him while he's there. So we're investing in him because we recognize the competency and the ability that he has, but also it shows him that and demonstrates to him that we recognize that in a really real way. That's the thing. But that we're investing in him.
So as a business owner, though, that's a really tough series of decisions. It's like a complex, talking about sales training, it's like a complex buying decision. And so you've got to make the decision to pull that person out of production. You've got to make the decision to invest in that person. You've got to make sure, hey, is this the right person? Are they going to stick around after I spend this? So you've got this series of very big decisions to make on whether you send somebody. And sometimes I think there's fatigue there and people just go, I'm not going to do it. And what I like to say to people like this is, don't make the decision just because it's a complex buying decision. Send your person and your business is going to grow far greater because of that person's increased skill and their commitment to you. It's going to grow far greater than the financial investment that you spend in going. And then I know once people start thinking, well, I have the opportunity to do this job, or I can send somebody else, I'm just going to do this job. In the long run, investing in your people is going to pay off more because they're going to make fewer mistakes. They're going to be more loyal, and they're going to have an alliance with your company because you've chosen to invest them.
Well, and yeah, absolutely. And also in our example, it could open up more selling opportunities as well. If I'm able to say yes to 1,000-foot fence that also has agricultural tied to it without saying, well, we're happy to do the fence, but you need to find somebody else to do this. Or worse, we try to do it and it ends up awful and we end up hiring someone to come fix it to make it right. It doesn't take many of those opportunities to make up for the investment. If you're only looking at it from a dollars and cents perspective, which, to your point, it's a complex buying decision. It's not only the return on that investment, but it's also introducing them to other professionals in the industry that they may not have ever met, that they may need to rely on in the future. Yeah. One person could say, hey, we use the thing I love about fence installation school. So when I went in 2022, I believe, in Waverly, up at Empire Fence, there were standards. We built to those standards. We learned those standards, but also we learned how other people meet or exceed those standards, what tools they use or equipment or techniques. I met people there that I still chat with and say, we were buying a piece of equipment. Hey, you mentioned using this piece of equipment. One, do you guys still use it? Are you still using it the same way? Would you buy it again? I mean, it's an investment. Would you buy it again? I may not have ever met that person. And certainly if we had passed each other like at a fence tech, we likely wouldn't have had that conversation. So we're putting our team members in a position to, one, meet that person, have these conversations, and build their professional network in a way they likely wouldn't have had the opportunity to do otherwise.
What I love is when people go and have that experience and build their network and have, it's like kind of the value of belonging to a large club so that you can have multiple resources. And then they get a little taste of what it's like, and then they come back and they instruct at the school, or they volunteer at their chapter. So what I love about that experience is that you're growing your technical competency. So there's a clear return on investment, financial return on investment, but then there's that intrinsic. I'm a better professional because I'm part of that AFA experience, and it's special. It is a special experience.
I couldn't agree more. As someone that's been through it, I couldn't agree more. It also gives them the opportunity to come back as a mentor trainer for our company.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
To teach his crew that he's aspiring to lead one day. To say, hey, I learned it this way. We do it this way, but did you know you could also, in the right environment or the right situation, you could actually do it this other way, and feel confident in that because he's seen it before and he's seen it taught. How great would it be for him to teach the crews the standards rather than waiting for a group training event that we host here where we talk about standards, to do that on a daily or weekly basis? I mean, it's invaluable.
It's invaluable. And I don't want to take anything away from the fence installation. That is an incredible experience. But I also, people can have that same experience on the gate side. So if people were exploring the idea of scaling their business to include automation, if people want to, it is because it's so long-standing and because it's so valuable, that gate school is an incredible experience.
Well, I'll give you an example from that. So one of our independent contractors, but preferred contractors that we use on a lot of commercial projects, he's going, so we were talking about this before we started recording. Right before this conversation, he had reached out and said, hey, I won't be available this week, the first week in November. And I said, oh, are you going to the fence installation school? Because if so, we could give you a ride. One of my guys is going. He said, no, actually, I'm going to the gate automation school in Arlington. I love that idea so much because in our market, and this could vary by market, but in ours, very few contractors specialize in gate automation that can do it well, that we feel good contracting with. Now, in a lot of markets, if you're in that situation, you're in that situation, and the supply and demand tells you that if the supply is low and demand is high, you can solve for that with pricing. So we see that a lot. And it's just great to have options in general. Now, this individual has had experience installing. So once the job is already sold, once the design is already set, he's great at following that plan, but he's not really sure exactly how that plan comes together. So he said, hey, I could use some design ideas. I want to know what the safety standards are. I'm great at looking at a work order and saying it gets this, and this device, and here's how they're installed. Why are those devices there? And here's the thing with automation. I mean, also, as UL evolves and safety is ever evolving, what do I need to know about what's coming down the pipeline for next year or for upcoming years? Should I start building that into next year's projects? These are all questions he has, and he's going to learn more about that. And also, again, to put himself in a network of individuals who are also in that sphere, to where he would then have resources to reach out to them and say, hey, here's what we're seeing. How do you handle this? What's your preferred accessory for this situation? Again, invaluable to put them in that scenario. You can easily look at the return. Now, And also, he's an independent contractor that's investing in himself at this point, because he obviously understands the value.
Yeah,
absolutely, for himself, meaning that for our team member, it is an investment in his time. He's going to be away from his family for a week. He's going to be doing this, but we're investing the dollars. Our contractor is investing his personal dollars, not only taking himself out of production for that week, but also investing his dollars. He sees this as a no-brainer because of the opportunities that it will provide him in the future.
Well, I think as we look at professional development within the industry, we are starting to think, there's the old adage that you're either born into the fence industry or you fall into it and you never leave. So that's kind of the idea. Yeah. That's not how AFA sees it. We want to see you develop through career paths, and the schools are an element of that career path. But as we start to think about professional development and keeping good people in our industry, we want to be a resource to you all as business owners to say, hey, you're going to train your people and it's going to be effective, but let us supplement your experience that you're giving your folks with another experience that happens when you're all together. And those experiences, whether it's the fence installation school and its existence, or the gate school and its longstanding existence, you're going to get top-notch instruction, top-notch networking, and just it's going to be a life-changing event. And I don't want to leave out the fence contractor business school or the sales training school in terms of opportunities, but when we talk about those opportunities that really can be impactful and life-changing, it really is that fence installation school and that gate installation school experience.
Those are kind of the foundational first steps, I would think. To your point, it doesn't minimize the other schools going on at the same time, but if we're talking about foundational, this is where to start. Now, the great thing is there's additional training. So talking about professional development, in a lot of professional industries, there is professional development, but also there's ongoing education, sometimes requirements, a lot of times opportunities, sometimes requirements to maintain a certification, something like that. So not only are we talking about foundational training, but also training that builds on that foundation, right? So the fence business school, the fence sales the sales professional training, you can build on this, right? And take that basic understanding.
We like to think of it as a combination of both education and then also credentialing. And then when you mix in the other leadership-oriented programs, or the fact of getting involved and making a difference in the industry through chapters or through committee work or through participation in collaborative events. I mean, we just have an outstanding program happening right now in terms of Purple Heart Homes and our partnership with them in terms of service to allowing folks from multiple companies to come together and do service projects. It's just incredible. So that experience, that AFA experience, is what's going to make the difference of somebody staying and belonging to this industry as a career, or them being here and saying, well, as soon as I find something different or better, I'll move on to that.
Well, it's the adage of like, what happens if I invest in these people and they leave? Well, and the response is, well, what happens if you don't invest and you don't train them and they stay?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
I mean, and guys, for the last 4 years, we've been having, and not that we never had an issue finding qualified people before, but now more than ever, it's hard to find the right person for the right seat in the business, now more than ever. So it only intensifies the need to reduce or eliminate, if possible, turnover, right?
Correct.
So if we can train our team, if we can invest in them, and they see us investing in them, then I would have to believe it leads in lower turnover. Right, that they see that they are a valuable member of the team, they're going to want to stay.
It's when you talk to training and development people, it's kind of a foundational principle. It's that idea that your return on investment, if you make a financial investment, you pull somebody out of production, you invest in the tuition and the room and board for them to go, there's a dollar figure that you can associate with that.
Sure.
And if you want to think about this in dollars and cents, it's a substantial, it's a good investment.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what's it going to cost you to lose that person and then have to recruit somebody new, lose the production while they come up to speed?
Right.
So when I'm talking to chapters about sending their people to program, or I'm talking to companies about sending their programs to people, it comes back to the adage you say, no, what's it going to cost you? Well, what's it going to cost you if they don't stay?
Yeah, and then you have an unknown, right? With the team members you have a known quantity. You know their potential, their personality. We've talked before about hiring for personality and aptitude. You have a bit of an unknown. So how hard is it to find someone, just to pass the steps to get to the interview and maybe get past the interview? But then there's always the unknown of, well, what's their real world experience? How are they going to fit with the team? How are they going to mesh as a group as a whole? If you have a known quantity, a known individual, they fit in well, they have an aptitude for leadership, why not invest in them? And I want to touch on something you had just mentioned too, about talking with chapters about sending their people or investing in their member companies. A lot of times we're talking about investment. A lot of times, I don't want to speak for all the chapters, but a lot of times there's opportunities from the chapter level for scholarships to these training, whether we're talking about fence installation school or the gate automation training.
Yeah, I think the chapters offer scholarships. The foundation has several scholarships each year that they offer. I think at the end of the day, we want people to come to that school because we know that it changes their perspective. It changes how they see things. And that
Absolutely.
Ultimately will mean people who are committed to the profession.
Couldn't agree more. Now, in the overall conversation we're having about investing in training, I also understand in the near future there's going to be opportunities. So fence installation school happens not once because there's also, you put the school on the road as well, but there's not always the opportunity throughout the year to send a team member to that. Right. My understanding is there's also going to be opportunities for online learning or for continuing education via online courses. Is that right?
Correct. We've just launched AFA University online. Okay. And that will have a lot of fence tech content. So folks who were not able to go to the last fence tech, that content is on there. Perfect. Several courses are on there. There's one course in particular that was developed early out of the gate called Fence Fundamentals. And companies are using that course to orient their entire staff to the industry. So If you hire a receptionist who's new and who's going to be taking calls from your customers, they need to know they need to know names of things. They need to know what things do and how things work together, the difference between the 5 disciplines. And that Fence Fundamental course is a very inexpensive way. Park them in front of the computer for 4 hours, and then that content's available for them to continue to learn. But that's the type of experience. When I said that AFA partnering with its members, we want to be that educational partner so that when you look at how you develop and onboard, how you develop your folks, you're doing it in a way where it's an easy lift for you.
Absolutely. Well, and in terms of across the whole team too, so it's also showing them, again, investing in their professional career, right? Their professional development to say, hey, we understand in this reception example, we understand you're going to field a lot of calls about a subject that you likely know nothing about.
That's right.
So not only would we want you to understand so you feel like you're having an educated conversation, but also understand what questions you could be asking to, one, help the customer arrive at the right answer, right? And also the right questions to ask to make sure you know how to relay that message or to relay that question to whomever it's directed to. In our example, so our front reception also handles the first call, or she's the first line of defense or first person that answers the calls for retail, right? So, hey, do you guys carry 1 5/8 tension bands? Well, let's understand, one, yeah, that's incredibly common. Yeah, we, as long as you don't need more than like 20,000 of them, I think we got you covered. But two, just knowing what that is, right? Knowing, okay, this is who I need to ask. This is, instead of saying, a tension, huh? All right, let me write this down. Tension band. One, probably doesn't sound too great on the phone, right? But two, also now that person is out of their depth and they don't feel comfortable in that conversation. Right. So giving them the tools, the understanding is a great first step. One, to making them feel comfortable and making them feel like they're in the right spot for them.
So think about now I think the approach to professional development starts to become really clear, this idea of career development. And so you might take a course. You might start your career with on your on-the-job training, your onboarding with your local company, and then you might get involved in a local chapter event when they have a speaker come in to talk about a topic. And then all of a sudden you're taking, hey, I love this. I want to be a team leader. And your company says, good, we're going to send you to fence installation school or gate installation school. Then all of a sudden you're now part of this larger industry and you think, now I'm going to take a leadership role. So the idea is that once people come in and want to be part of who we are as an industry, we can then move them through their entire career and make them feel good about where they belong and what they're contributing back to the industry.
Absolutely. As well as providing an incredible resource to the company because how many conversations, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had. I can't imagine how many you've had about the lack of just training programs in companies. I mean, establishing something like this within a company, incredibly difficult, right? I mean, it's not difficult to document the steps. That can be, but creating a well-rounded training course within a company that's currently producing business, right? Like we're producing fence, we're running a business here, so we don't really have the time to do this, but also thinking how many companies are trying to replicate the same thing, right? Now it sounds like you guys are putting together a program that hopes to average all these things to at least provide basic foundational understanding of fencing in general.
Correct. I think the easier we make it for people to earn more, for people to save more, for people to make their businesses better, the easier that we are to interact with. Sure. The more gain that you all have when you run your business. It's, I liken it a little bit to, you all don't create a CRM from scratch and drive that CRM. Right. You just wouldn't do it. That's not your core business. Why would you create a training program when you can get people up to speed and then you just build in this other experience? And then you put icing on the cake by attending a Fence Tech experience and getting that education. That's it, that experience. It's just a massive way for you to keep your employees and make them feel part of your team and make them feel part of the industry.
Absolutely. And arm them with the tools to make them even more successful with a hands-on training, whether it's going to be fence installation school, gate automation, whether it's the fence business school, whether it's a leadership training, whatever it may be, giving them a step ahead to that, making them feel comfortable to at least be in the room and knowledgeable about the industry they're serving in. One, makes them feel more comfortable. Again, talking about turnover, likely to reduce turnover because they feel like they're in the right spot. They don't feel like they're a fish out of water, but also good for the company that they're having better conversations, more educated conversations, and likely being more efficient in their role, being armed with this additional training.
Correct. And with the stronger network and more connections and everything that comes with comes with their belonging to AFA.
Absolutely. Michael, I feel like we've covered this pretty well. I mean, the return on investment, no matter what we're talking about, right? Whether we're talking about fence installation school, gate automation school, which are relevant right now because they're coming up soon, just training in general, taking time to train your team, to press the pause button and invest in your people returns exponentially, right? You can't measure the return, but you can see the return. You probably could if you were to look at your business year on year and see.
You can measure it.
Yeah.
It's a pretty easy calculation.
Okay.
The calculation is, what would it cost you to replace this valued employee?
Yep. Okay. Yep.
And work it out on paper, and you'll find that investing in things like education and credentialing and those type things make your employees feel valued. And the more value your employees have, the more likely they are to stay.
Absolutely. Well, and in the case of fence installation school, it's pretty easy to measure production as well. You can measure it in production per week or, per hour, however you want to track it. I would wager that if you were to track efficiency, production per hour, per week, however, prior to and then after the training, I think you would be pleasantly surprised just from that aspect.
Absolutely.
So, guys, cherry on top here, or a quick summation is you can't afford not to train your team, right? Is it an investment? Absolutely. But I tell you what, we're in the business of investments, meaning that the equipment we purchase is an investment. The trucks we buy are an investment. The material we keep on hand to stock is an investment, right? So each of these are educated investments. We take the time to understand them, understand if there's risk, understand the reward, the return. We should do the same thing on training. Can we afford not to train? Can we afford higher turnover? Can we afford to lose who would be an A player because they don't feel comfortable or they don't feel they're in the right spot, the right industry maybe? Can we afford that? Likely, in my case, the answer is no. So when we saw someone that showed aptitude, that showed eagerness to learn and a willingness to take on this task, we couldn't say yes fast enough. It is absolutely 100% the best investment we'll make in this individual. It's one of the best investments we'll make as a company, I'm sure of it, as they come back and they open up the door to new opportunities, whether we're talking about new disciplines that we wouldn't have or new types of fence we wouldn't have offered, but also just the personal pride that they'll take in the work, the efficiency as they're doing the work, the lack of turnover when they feel like they have found a home, they have found an industry that they love and that they're good at. No matter how you calculate this thing, it's a win.
It's a win.
Whether it's here, this is relevant because it's coming up, and that's why we're having this conversation now. But even if you're watching this video 6 months from now, take the time to invest in your people, whether it's training on your site, whether it's investing, pressing the pause button on production to take a day and say, hey, here's why we do what we do. Here's how we do what we do. Here's the standards that we are either meeting or exceeding, etc. Take the time, invest in your people. The return is astronomical, if only for not having turnover in your company, if we're not turning over and we're still finding good rock stars, good leaders, good members of the team. Now we're growing the team instead of maintaining the team. We're always better for it, I guess, is the point. Michael, thank you so much for coming on, for being the first guest on the first episode of Fence Industry One-on-One.
Well, thanks a lot for having me, Joe. I appreciate it very much.
You're welcome. Guys, stay tuned for more episodes of the Fence Industry One-on-One. If you have someone that you would like to have on this, drop them in the comments below. We'd love to talk to people in the fencing industry that you would like to hear from, because if you'd like to hear from them, there's a good chance we would like to hear from them, and everyone else watching would also like to meet and hear from that person. Drop them in the comments below. For now, Joe Everest, the fence expert, reminding you that good fences make good neighbors, and we'll see you next time.